All right. Let's talk about those Tyler Kolek minutes, baby. Here we go. Welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show presented by BetUS. Well, that is just what the doctor ordered. A 133-104 victory in Sacramento. For the moment, at least, the sky has stopped falling. We can stop firing people and upending heaven and earth to try to find answers for this team, which found a few answers themselves tonight. So let's get into it. There are a lot of things that we could go to for this game, which of course turned into a blowout, but was, got down to 10 points in the third quarter. So, give credit where credit is due. I would say they withstood a few cursory Kings challenges. We could talk about the fact that the Kings were on the second night of a back-to-back. We could talk about the fact that the Knicks finally made some threes. We could talk about a bunch of individual numbers. We could talk about OG Anunoby's assists. We could talk about Karl-Anthony Towns getting into the action in a way that he has not gotten into in a while. We could talk about Miles McBride coming out and scintillating, scorching the Nets in the first quarter. We could go up and down the stat sheet and the box score, and we're going to go through all of it. The defense, Mitchell Robinson, tons of stuff. There's one number, I guess two numbers that are associated with each other that I'm going to start the postgame with, and that is 4-4-6. And that is Josh Hart's three-point makes and Josh Hart's three-point attempts. We have been through the ringer this season as the Knicks came out in the beginning of the year as one of the best offenses, not only in basketball this season, but one of the best offenses that we have seen maybe ever. And the defense was an issue, but we kind of knew what the assignment was, figure out the defense, the whole thing. The offense would take care of itself. It was going to be legendary. It was going to be something that we would tell our grandkids about. And then a funny thing happened on the way to the forum, which is that the offense started to not be that legendary offense that we started the season with. And I know a bunch of other stuff has been happening. There have been injuries. There have been, ups and downs with individual players. And there's a lot of things that we could point to why the Knicks that kind of started the season as one identity have morphed into this other team that has just has an air of discomfort, or has had an air of discomfort about them for some time now, but especially since the All-Star break, when they have been flat out one of the worst offenses in basketball. As has been discussed by many, many, many people on the interwebs, not the least of which is our film guys over here, DJ Zulo and Benji Ridholtz. Josh Hart's going from a guy who was a 40% three-point shooter over the first 20-ish games of this season to a guy who just stopped taking three-pointers altogether, has not single-handedly hamstrung and constrained this once legendary offense, but for me, and I think for a lot of people, it has been the biggest factor. Because one, it allows you to put your center on Josh Hart and not think twice about it. Two, it allows you to just flatly not guard Josh Hart when he is out on the perimeter. So you are in this conundrum, and we were texting about it today in our Patreon text thread. It's like, all right, so basically when Josh Hart's in the game, he needs to be involved in every action, and Karl-Anthony Towns needs to go and be a 7-foot Klay Thompson. And then, but also Karl-Anthony Towns, in order to maximize, as Benji Ridholtz put it in his most recent grade book, your Ferrari that you've traded for, in order to maximize him, he has to play a bunch of minutes without Josh Hart on the court. And so all of a sudden you're making all of these compromises to maximize this player because of this major glaring imperfection, and also probably not play this player as many minutes as his overall talent level would dictate. And it is all coming down to his three-point shooting or lack thereof. And so for me tonight, of all the things that I'm going to take from this game, which was very much a get-well game for the Knicks against a team that, again, they caught him on the second night of a back-to-back, but that's a tough place to play, and God knows that is a tough offense to stop. And we're going to get into the defense. Believe me, we're going to get into the defense because I think for a lot of people, the defense is going to be the lead story from tonight, and I'm totally fine with that. For me, it's Josh Hart. And again, taking threes with confidence, making threes with confidence. If anybody out there wants to gift PJ Tucker a key to the city, because I don't know what he told Josh Hart, I don't know what he slipped Josh Hart, put in his drink, whispered sweet nothings into his ear, whatever it was, because it sure seemed like Josh Hart, after he was making those threes, was looking right over at his newest teammate, PJ Tucker, who has obviously been around for a long time. And, Ian Begley, the GOAT, has reported for a little while now, even before the Tucker signing was made official, before it was announced by the beat reporters when they found out about it. He was saying, listen, it's a good guy to get in your locker room. And is this the PJ Tucker effect? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And most importantly, we'll have to wait and see if this shooting for Hart continues. The reason why I just spent 5 minutes on this and why I'm so exuberant about Josh Hart going 4 or 6 from deep in a game that had 100 other storylines is that Josh Hart has shown himself over the course of his career to be the sort of player who can flip on a dime. Because he is not a player that it doesn't come down to shooting for him. It doesn't come down to X's and O's. It comes down to above the neck. He is a confidence-driven player. When he is playing with confidence, when he is shooting with confidence, he is a fundamentally different guy than when he is not. And when he is playing with confidence and when he's shooting in confidence, forget changing a game. He could change a playoff series. And we saw him do it against the Philadelphia 76ers when he went out in the first round last year. I believe the final numbers were 12 for 22 over the first 3 games against Philly. Andrew, if you want to just double check that for me, I think that's what it was, because I'm pretty sure he hit 4 threes in each of the first 3 games. You could argue that it flipped that series, because I don't know that they win either of those first 2 games if Josh Hart doesn't have the 3-point shooting performances that he does. So we've already seen the impact of what a confidently shooting Josh Hart can make on a team. And when you factor in everything else that the Knicks have going on and the ways that teams are defending Karl-Anthony Towns and comfortably defending Karl-Anthony Towns and the rest of the offense, frankly, because it's 4 on 5. That is my biggest takeaway from this game. And it is the thing that moving forward, I just hope is going to maintain. And we've seen it before. We've seen his seasons just flip like that, like nothing. So maybe this is the game that gets him going. We could only hope. So wanted to spend a little bit of time on that, but God knows there's a lot else to talk about. In no particular order. The defense. And handcuffed to the conversation about the defense is OG Anunoby. Because the OG Anunoby that we have gotten over the last, 10 days to 2 weeks, whatever it's been, and obviously the Miami game was the loudest of those performances. That's the OG Anunoby that you go and sign to a 5-year, $212 million contract and not feel like you have overpaid by a dime, because he can wreck games. He wrecked the Miami game. He's wrecked a few other games over the last few weeks, and God knows he wrecked tonight. It wasn't as loud maybe as Deuce's performance in the first quarter. Wasn't as splashy as Josh Hart's made threes, although OG, to his credit, made 3 of 7 from behind the arc in his own right. And that's the other part of it, is when OG Anunoby is wrecking games on the defensive end, we've seen this now for a while, it imbues him with confidence. And it's not just shooting, it's his whole offensive game. OG Anunoby putting the ball on the floor tonight, attacking the basket, a career-high 8 assists. I thought he was going to go for a triple-double at some point. Didn't quite get there. 24, 8, and 7. 8 assists, 7 rebounds. And I'm sure I'm leaving out some important... 4 steals. How about that? So, but this was not just OG Anunoby on defense. I thought, and they talked about it on the broadcast. We could talk about it tonight. This really was a team effort. I mean, I think they ended up with 34 assists. It feels like the first time in a while that they've had over 30 assists in a game. I'll pull it up right now as I'm talking. but the defensive cohesion, and let's use that word because it's a word we've used a lot this year, and we've used it in a pejorative sense because there has been a gross lack of cohesion and connectivity on many, many, many outings for this team. Tonight, I thought you had that after the opening few minutes, and we've seen this team come out and not look great in opening minutes of games all season long. I'm not going to put much into that. But after that, I thought they were really attached at the hip for the most part, switching seamlessly, and more than that, comfortably switching as opposed to fighting it tooth and nail. By the way, last time the Knicks had more than 30 assists in the game was 11 games ago. That's February 11th against the Indiana Pacers. So it's been a while since they've been disconnected on the offensive end. But let's get back to the defense for a second. Again, comfortable switching Cat into different matchups, comfortable switching Mitch onto different matchups. And that's a name that we should probably talk about because Mitch has been back. This is his, whatever it is, his 6th game back, I think. We've seen glimpses. Certainly, we've seen glimpses. Tonight was the first night I feel like we got the full Mitchell Robinson. Funny enough, I actually don't think he finished with a block in this game. I'm going to double check that right now. I think it was mostly steals where he did his damage. Yeah. 4 steals for Mitchell Robinson, and I misspoke before. 5 steals for OG Anunoby. The team as a whole, 13 steals on the night. That is, I'm going to bet that's, if not their highest of the season, it's right up there. It is 3rd highest of the season. They had 20 steals against Memphis, 16 steals in an early season game against Detroit. So this is the 3rd highest steal total of the year. And Mitchell Robinson and OG Anunoby, the minutes that we got with those guys together, boy, oh boy, that's a team that could defend. Those are 2 high-level impact defenders that, and we've seen it this year. OG Anunoby is one guy. And even when you have him as a roamer helping off of, a less threatening offensive player to try to muck things up elsewhere on the court, there's only so much he could do as one man. When you pair him with someone, especially at the center position, the caliber of Mitchell Robinson, it's a game changer. And I think of Josh Hart's 3-point shooting is the first thing that I'm going to be most excited about tonight. Number 2 is the prospect of getting those 2 guys on the floor together for significant stretches of games. How much could they play together? Well, we saw Mitchell Robinson upped his minutes tonight to 16. I don't think he had gotten above the 13-minute mark since he has come back. So 16 minutes, that's a good sign. Those 2 together. And again, but I don't want to give just like those 2 guys credit. I thought everybody up and down the roster played exceptional defense tonight. And yes, that includes Karl-Anthony Towns. I get it. The whole conversation about defense is at least partially skewed by the fact that Jalen Brunson was not in this game. And, this is now 7 games of good defensive numbers, some bad 3-point shooting early on. The King in that stretch, Kings didn't shoot the 3 well tonight. Look, for a team that's been as, let's just call a spade, disastrously performed defensively as they have, I think we got to take any good signs. And this is now a real run for them on defense. I think you see some improvement from Towns, and you see the whole unit working better. So good stuff from them on the defensive end. And let's go after that let's go to Deuce. And let's finish up the monologue with Deuce McBride. Deuce McBride, even going back to when he was a rookie, you got a sense, and one of the worst shooting seasons as a rookie in literally NBA history. I forget what podcast I was on, or I did some bit a few weeks ago, and it was, I think, what was the stat for among rookies that had taken at least 100 field goal attempts? I think was the number. and had shot below whatever percentage. I forget if it was effective field goal percentage or overall field goal percentage, one of those two. You could count them on like one hand over the last 30 years. Rookies who had shot the volume that Deuce did coming into the league and shot as poorly as he did. And yet, you could tell that this kid had some shit to him and didn't turn around the shooting immediately. He was better in the second year, but got more of an opportunity. Every time you saw him, you wanted to see more. And then that all coalesced into his opportunity following the Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett trade last season, when he stepped into a bigger role and eventually stepped into a much, much bigger role when he was starting games and playing 40 minutes a night. I mean, playing 48 minutes a game, and being an integral part to their operation in the playoffs. And now it's come to this season where it was supposed to be a 6-man of the year campaign. Hasn't quite gone that way. He's missed a few stints here. He's been a little bit shooting inconsistent recently. Hasn't frankly gotten the time that I think a lot of people would have liked to see him get, maybe at the expense of a Josh Hart, something we've talked about a lot. But at no point in time do I think any of us have been worried about Deuce McBride, which is why, coming off of the Clippers game, his first start, obviously, in place of Jalen Brunson, first start of the year, I think. I was expecting a bounce back tonight. Was I expecting 5 for 5 and 15 points in the first quarter? I don't know that I was expecting that, but it was par for the course for this player, that every time he has been confronted with a challenge throughout his Knicks career, and you could even go back before that, he has answered the bell. And I was really, really happy. I know there were a lot of, I opened the show with a joke about Tyler Kolek, but there were legitimately people out there who were like, hey, why don't we start Kolek? At least we know he's a point guard. Look, Deuce McBride is not a traditional point guard, and he's never really going to be a traditional point guard. We've talked about it for years. He's a wing in a point guard's body, but he can do enough that when you surround him with the sort of playmaking and the sort of talent that this Knicks starting lineup has, it's more than enough. And I thought one of my favorite plays of the game was the Knicks' last score of the first half, when Deuce McBride, so the clock was winding down, took his time, got into the teeth of the defense, waited until the low man bit, swung a little pass to Mitchell Robinson for Mitchell Robinson's easiest basket of the game. That's maturation. That's progress. That's years and years and years of putting in the work and putting in the hours behind the scenes. And from everything we've been told, there isn't anybody who works harder than Deuce McBride. So wanted to finish up on him because, you could make the case for OG Anunoby, player of the game, make the case for Josh Hart, player of the game. I haven't even mentioned Karl-Anthony Towns other than his defense. Pretty nice offensive game for Karl-Anthony Towns. And if you want to even go there as your biggest takeaway from this game, Karl-Anthony Towns has not really been himself for a little while now on the offensive end. Finished tonight 8 of 15 from the floor, 3 of 6 from deep, got to the line 9 times, 26 points. So on, again, 26 points on 15 shots. Hopefully this could get Towns going on the offensive end. I thought he got, some nice, he looked comfortable out there more and more as the game went on. Was that a little bit of the fact that the Kings don't have the best defense suited to stop him? I'm sure it was, but player like him, he could still get the ball rolling, and hopefully it continues forward. But all good stuff for the Knicks tonight. They needed this win. Kings were tired and whatever. I don't care. There's been a lot of if you want to, I think there's a lot of consternation coming off of Friday's loss of the Clippers, when really, what are we dealing with? We were dealing with a team on the second night of a back-to-back that couldn't hit the far side of a barn, and has not been able to hit the far side of a barn since the All-Star break. Well, wouldn't you know it, 2 days off, get some good shooting luck, everything looks great. I mean, that's what the NBA is at the end of the day. It's, are you shooting well? Is the team that you're playing shooting well? 9 times out of 10, that's going to dictate the game. And tonight, you could argue that that's exactly what happened. But we're going to talk about all the things that they did well tonight. There are many of them. And I'm excited. I'm excited to get to whoever is up late, whether you're in New York staying up, it's 1:30 in the morning, or you're elsewhere in the world. Maybe you're just starting your day, whatever it is.